Hello everyone, welcome back. So I'm going to do my reading wrap up for September, and also I'm going to show some of the books that I hope to get to in October. I may change my mind. I'm always changing my mind. I set a book aside and say, yeah, I'm definitely going to read this. And then I kind of look at it and read the synopsis and go, I'm not in the mood, and I'll go to another book. But these are the ones that hopefully I'll get to in October. So I'll go through the books that I read in September. And yeah, it's a great month for like horror and thrillers and witchy type of books. So the first book I read in September is by Cass Morgan and Daniel Page, and this is The Ravens. There is a second book in the series, The Monarchs, I believe. So this takes place on a college campus, and one of the sororities is actually a coven of witches, and they're good witches. A lot of their mothers before them were in the same sorority, so they're witches also, so they kind of carry on the tradition. So I really do like the cover with the crows there. Anyway, so yeah, they are good witches, but of course with any group you're always going to get a bad apple in that. So this follows this group of women in the sorority and what happens to them. So it is, I believe it is YA fiction. It very much reads as kind of a YA fiction. So yeah, there's a lot of stereotypical, you know, the girls in the sorority are beautiful and everyone thinks they're kind of snobby, and then you get the outsiders, that sort of thing. So, but I did like the magic system. There was a little bit of a twist at the end, which I thought was interesting, and I did like the kind of the wrap up to kind of explain what was going on throughout the book. So yeah, I mean, I give it about 3.75. You know, it wasn't too bad. Would I read the second one, the sequel? I don't know if I liked it that much to read the sequel. Actually, this kind of summed everything up nicely for me, so I don't think I would. And then the next book I read was Hellbent, which is the sequel to Ninth House. So this is a dark academia book. I can't really explain the plot of Hellbent too much because it will have major spoilers for the Ninth House. So the Ninth House, the main character is Alex, and she is recruited into, is it Yale? Yeah. Into Yale's Ninth House because she is able to see ghosts. She's able to see dead people. Now, the people in the Ninth House, they're not able to see any ghost or dead people because it's not natural for them. They have to drink this elixir, which kind of weakens their body and that. So they do recruit her, and it's quite complex in that about how they recruit her and why they recruit her and etc., etc., etc. But there is 8 houses in Yale. They're secret societies, and each society has a special magical powers. And the Ninth House, they actually kind of oversee the other 8 houses. They oversee their rituals. They make sure that no members of the public are harmed by these people. So they're basically kind of oversee and make sure everything runs smoothly. So she is part of the Ninth House. And yeah, there's a lot that happens in this book. Now, if you are interested in reading these books, I would suggest reading them back to back. I can't remember, maybe 6 months had passed or 9, I can't quite remember the length of time that passed between reading these 2 books. But yeah, I was 50 pages into Hellbent, and I'm like, I can't remember who that character was. I can't remember what happened. It's not a confusing book, but it's complex. There's a lot that goes on in the Ninth House. So if you have read the Ninth House and you haven't read Hellbent yet, I would maybe go onto YouTube. There's a couple of good YouTube channels that I read kind of a summary of this, and they're even titled, if you want to read Hellbent, read this first, kind of, or watch this video first, because they summarize up what happened in Ninth House. So I watched a couple of those videos and I'm like, oh yeah, okay. And I went back to Hellbent and I kind of made it much easier reading because I remembered what had happened. But yeah, it's a lot that happens in this book. I really enjoyed it. I can't remember how many stars. I maybe gave this 4.5 or 5 stars. The Hellbent I would maybe give a little bit less. I didn't quite enjoy it as much because this first book just went into Alex's background, and there's so much that happened. All these different kind of storylines were going on at the same time, and then they came together at the end. It was really interesting reading about the different magic systems. And this one, I can't really say too much. Let's just say it's a quest kind of novel. But yeah, I don't want to give anything away, but it did go into the magic systems, but not as much. And I don't know, I did like the Ninth House a little bit better, but I certainly enjoyed Hellbent. So this one I give like maybe a 4.25 stars, so a little bit less than this one. But now, originally I think this was supposed to be like a 7-book series. Now I think it's down to a trilogy. I'm not quite sure. So I'm not sure when the next book will be coming out. And then whenever I go on vacation, now I only read 4 books in September, and the reason being I went to Scotland and I read about 200 pages of a book, and that was it, like the 10 days that we were gone. And that's mostly because I was just thoroughly soaking up Scotland. I didn't want to miss a thing. So I mostly read on the plane and maybe a little bit at bedtime. But yeah, there's just too much to see and do in Scotland. I just didn't have time to read. So that's why I only got through 4 books, but I did read maybe half of this book. And that's by Deanna Rayborn, and it is the Veronica Speedwell mystery. So if you watch my reviews, you know I just love this series. This is the 5th book in the series, I believe, Murderous Relation. So it's these 2 naturalists. One is Veronica and one is Stoker. And yeah, like I said before, the sexual tension, the banter. I love the mysteries in here. I just absolutely love this series. And I know there's I think the 8th one came out a while ago, but I'm waiting for a decent price. Even on Kindle it's expensive. And she has the 9th one coming out I think in January. So yeah, I definitely don't get tired of these books. I love the ending. If you've read this series, you know what I mean. I absolutely love the ending. So yeah, those are a no-fail for me. And now, just before I went to Scotland, I did read Consider the Lilies, and this takes place during the Highland clearances. The landowners decided that it was more productive and more profit-making if they replaced all the farmers and their crops with sheep. So a lot of these people were driven out of their houses, which for generations their families lived on. And yeah, it was a very interesting time of Scottish culture. And so I was really looking forward to this book. It's by Ian Crichton Smith, and this is the 50th anniversary, Consider the Lilies, and it's really a beautiful cover. Now this follows one particular woman. I think she's about 7 years old. Her husband died in a war, and her son had immigrated to Canada. And they just found out that these evictions are going to be starting, and that she's going to be driven out of her house. But it was sort of more character-driven than plot-driven. I was really hoping they would go into more depth about how they had to leave their houses and where they were going to go and how they adapted to all this. But it focused more on this woman who's actually kind of miserable, actually. Her parents were extremely strict, extremely religious. So she grows she ends up marrying and kind of drives her husband away because she's pretty miserable, and she doesn't get along with her son because she's just so strict in that. And yeah, it did focus somewhat on them, you know, leaving their homes and that, but even by the end of the book, it hadn't gotten to that point where they were leaving. So yeah, it was just more of a character study about this woman and how she, just how her upbringing really affected her relationships with other people and that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, it was beautifully written, but I just was expecting a little bit more and something different with this. So those are the books. Yeah, no, I didn't get a lot of reading done, so I'm hoping to get a little more done this month. Presently, I am reading The Broken Girls by Simone St. James. And yeah, I've always heard really good things about this particular book. And I do have a couple of her other novels, which I have to get to. But this has 2 timelines, and it's kind of a creepy, ghostly kind of book. So the first timeline is in Vermont in 1950, and there is a boarding school called Idlewood Hall, and girls who are kind of on the fringe of society are sent there, like little troublemakers and other people there, other women that are just not getting along well with society, I guess you could say. And at the very beginning of the book, this girl gets off the bus and she's making her way to the boarding school, and she knows someone is chasing her, and we're not quite sure what happened to her, but probably not good. And then it goes to the present. So yeah, Vermont in 2014, there is a journalist, and her older sister was found on the abandoned fields around this old boarding school. And her boyfriend at the time was arrested for her murder, and he has spent the last 20 years in jail for this woman's sister's murder. And she's a journalist, her boyfriend is a police officer, and even after 20 years, she thinks something's just not right. She just wants to know more details and what's happened to her sister. And so it goes back and forth from Vermont in 1950 at this boarding school, and then in present day with this journalist who's just trying to find out more about her murder. So I just started last night, just got maybe 50 pages into it, but there's a developer who's going to refurbish this boarding school, and she wants to do a story so she can find out more about her sister's murder. So yeah, I haven't gotten too far into that yet. And then I'll go over some of these books that I want to read in October. Man, there's dozens of books I would love to read this time of year, but I only have so much time. So anyway, this is some of them. Anyhow, I won't get through all these this month, but I'll try. So the very first one is kind of a cozy story. The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches, which came out earlier this year. So yeah, it's just a warm and uplifting novel about an isolated witch. So she goes to this kind of a magic school to help out and that sort of thing. So that's all I know about it. The next one is A Monster Calls, but this is by Patrick Ness. So the original person who was going to start writing this book had passed away, so this Patrick Ness took her notes and made a story of it himself. Now this is the illustrated version of the story. So they have all these black and white, quite a few black and white pictures throughout this book. And The monster showed up after midnight, as they do, but it isn't a monster Connor's been expecting. He's been expecting the one from his nightmares. Yeah, this is won quite a few awards also. And this is Spells for Forgetting by Adrienne Young. And now this one, so there's a character, Emery, and her best friend was found dead, and the love of her life was accused of murdering her. And they live on a sort of remote island somewhere, and her family runs a tea shop and tea leaf readings and that sort of thing. Anyway, it's quite a long synopsis, so I've heard pretty good things about this one. And this is by John Boyne, and this basically, this house is haunted. So this takes place in 1867 in Norfolk, England. So Eliza responds to an ad for a governess position at this hall, and when she arrives, she's greeted by two children in her care, and there's no adult present to represent her mysterious employer, and the children offer no explanation. And yeah, a lot of terrifying things start to happen. So a perfect kind of Victorian Gothic tale. Now this one I think I'll read next. This is Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. So this woman, she comes out of rehab and she takes a job looking after this 5-year-old boy called Teddy. And I guess he really likes to draw on that, and he draws these little innocent pictures of bunnies and trees and that sort of thing. But then one day, all of a sudden, he starts drawing these like really creepy pictures, like a man in a forest dragging a woman's body, etc., like this. So yeah, this one really sounds spooky. And this one actually has all these illustrations, quite a few illustrations throughout. There's some of his pictures and that. So yeah, it's a kind of a mystery why all of a sudden he starts drawing all these spooky little pictures. So that one really sounds good. This is The Spite House by Johnny Compton. And I guess a spite house, if you want to really tick off your neighbors, you do something to make your house really ugly or something. That's why they call them spite houses. But this gentleman, he's on the run from a mysterious past with his two daughters in tow. And then he comes across a ad in the paper, and it says the most haunted place in Texas needs a caretaker. So all he has to do is stay in the house and keep a detailed record of everything that happens. So he takes his two children there, and that's creepy. The next one is The Year of the Witching. So I've had this on my TBR, and I really got to get to this one. Yeah, I do love those witchy books, and I just finished one, The Once and Future Witches by Alex Harrow, which I'll review next month. I really enjoyed that one. So this woman probably takes place in the 15th or 16th century. It's a young woman. She lives in a rigid puritanical society, and then she discovers that she does have these powers, but she is biracial, so it makes her even more of an outsider and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's a very strict society, and how she copes with that. And yeah, there's something really creepy happens anyhow, and how she deals with it. Now this one is not really creepy, but it gave me fall vibes. Susan Wiggs. I've read some of her books, and this is called Family Tree, and I just absolutely love this cover. So this woman is, her life is shattered in an instant. So she retreats to her family's home in Vermont, and they have a farm there. And I think it's just like contemporary fiction, just how she deals with things, and she's surrounded by her brother, her mother, her four nieces and nephews, etc., like that. So yeah, perfect reading for this time of year. And this one is called Shutter by Courtney Alameda. Now, I haven't read any of her books. That cover alone is pretty creepy. So the main character is Micheline Helsing. So she's the last descendant of the Van Helsing line. So Van Helsing is the one who went after, you know, the monsters and the vampires and that sort of thing. So she's trained since childhood to destroy monsters. So the undead go down by the bullet, and the spiritual undead by the lens. So she, I think she has a crew that goes with her, and yeah, a routine ghost hunt goes wrong, and Micheline and the boys are infected with a curse known as a soul chain. So yeah, I can't remember the reviews on that one, but anyway, sounds like a good October read. And then this one is The Witches of Moonshine Manor by Bianca Marais. So I like this part. Why were we taught to fear witches and not the men who hunted them? So yeah, so this takes place in the present, I believe. So it's a coven of modern day witches, but they're all in their 80s. And I think the one witch kind of looks after the finance. She's fallen behind on their mortgage payments, and the mob is only the start of their troubles. Yeah, sounded like kind of a fun read. So those are the ones I'm hoping to read this month. I better get at it. I'm sure some of these are going to go into November, but those are the ones I would like to read anyhow. And it's just the perfect time of year. It's cold and rainy at night, and it's just bundle up with my little pot of tea there and read my creepy little novels. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed, and let me know what you plan to read this kind of fall creepy month. And everyone take care, and we'll see you soon.